My name's Devlin. As he had mentioned, I am a lifestyle coach that really tries to dive deep into the practicality of finding success. So, I was bullied as a kid for being overweight. I was actually relatively thin, but because my family was overweight, all of the bullies, they always told me, well, you know what, you might as well be fat because your family is. Then I was pretty thin through most of my years. I had quit smoking cigarettes in 2009, and I got in a long-term relationship, two of which I'm married to now. But in that first year, I gained 60 pounds. And I'm 5'5", it was not a good feeling, it was not a good look, and I had that thought of all those bullies from my youth sitting there, and I was like, wow, they were right. I was gonna eventually attain to the same thing. Fast forward a little bit, I ended up battling with my weight for about 7 years. I did a ton of yo-yo diets, tried the HCG diet, I did keto. There was a point in time where I did some P90X, that was the one that brought the most results. But then I also tried just doing 2 hours of cardio every day and starving myself. That one was awful. Now, the main thing that all of those approaches had in common was that none of them were sustainable for the rest of my life. Now, I'm sure most of you out here today have at least at one point in time tried a semi-severe diet to try to lose a little bit of weight before some sort of event. But the problem is because it's not something that you can stick to every single day, over the long term, the results that you're gonna attain from that are short-lived, and a lot of the times you're gonna gain more weight back afterwards. In order to be able to progress forward with all that, you need to be able to get past failure. Now, what a lot of people don't understand is how failure is one of the most important aspects of success. But what I like to call it is more of a micro-failure. So when you try one of those big crash diets and you fall off and you have all this guilt and this shame and all these negative emotions eating you up inside, you have the hardest time getting back on because you were doing so good before and now you just feel awful. That's a failure, but if you were able to look at that and be able to learn from why you failed, or be able to at least remove the negative emotions that come with that, then you can use it as part of your success story by learning about it. A micro-failure that is necessary is having that piece of pizza. It's having that piece of cake. Going out with your friends and having a couple drinks even when you said you were gonna drink water. You know, those are absolutely necessary. Because the thing is when you follow those choices up with the negative emotions, so many people sit there and they feel, well, I already had some candy today, I might as well go order some pizza and just, have a full cheat day. But that's the wrong approach, because the very next day, those negative emotions are gonna swarm you even heavier, but this is gonna come with shame now. It's not gonna sit there and be like, oh, hey, well, I can just, whatever, the rest of the day, I might as well enjoy it. So those micro-failures are necessary. But the thing is failure is very uncomfortable. Most people try to do everything they can to avoid it. A lot of people get stuck in the comfort zone in so many aspects of their lives. Every single one of you out here has goals that you want to attain, but you're afraid of starting. No matter where it is, there's some sort of goal that you haven't even taken that first step to because you're afraid of failure. But failure is the first sign of being able to find success. I was reading the other day, Michael Jordan had lost 2,000 basketball games. He missed the game-winning shot 30 times. He didn't start out as a good basketball player, but the reason that he is known as one of the greatest is because he failed over and over and over again and was able to take everything from that experience to be able to push forward and become one of the greatest. How many people do you know in your day-to-day life that accept failure to that extent, knowing that it is something that is going to progress them forward in life? The biggest differences between failures and micro-failures is whether you get back on it or not. Because a lot of people, what they do is they focus on where they want to be and they compare it to where they are now. If you want to attain this kind of body, this kind of physique, these types of goals, you're going to need to go to the gym 5 days a week. You need to eat healthy 5 meals a day. You need to be able to go into cardio and steps and all these things. But the problem is jumping from nothing to everything is going to lead to failure. And that's where everybody has to take that step back. What I like to say for people is they need to find incremental changes that you can do to your day-to-day to be able to eventually obtain success. Compare yourself today to where you were 30 days ago, to a month ago, to 2 months ago. You had a bad day today, and that's okay. Everybody has bad days. Was your bad day better than your bad day you had last month? Because if it is, then that means that you're still progressing. So you can have that bad day, you could let that day slide, and you could sit there without any of the shame and the guilt that should be following with all of that. And the big thing is everybody struggles differently. So what works for me might not work for you. What works for you might work for half the people in the crowd, but maybe not the rest of them. The big thing with this is the discomfort, though. It's so uncomfortable to fail, especially if the eyes are on you. But the reason that it's uncomfortable to fail is because it is something that means so deep to you. When you have that desire, when it's something that means so much to you as an individual, and you tried and you felt like you tried your hardest, and you just get in a stuck rut, that's why it hurts. That's why the failure is so uncomfortable, but that's okay, because the failure and the feeling that you want to avoid failure only means that it means so much to you and that you care. And that's okay, you can do that. What I like to say is I like to have people do really small steps. I actually helped a gentleman earlier today. We were talking and he hasn't worked out in a few years, and he used to do all of these different things, first things throughout the day. He used to do like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 pull-ups, all these things. And so we were just chatting and talking. I was like, oh, so like when would you do these? And he was like, well, I would do like 50 in the morning, and then throughout the day I would just find time. And I was looking at him, I was like, why don't you start with 10? I'm like, you might not have the motivation to be able to carry forward, but everybody has time to do 10 push-ups when it pops in your mind. And I could see the eyes, I could see the fire in his eyes just like light up, and he was like, holy shit. I was like, I didn't really think about taking those small steps. And you know what he did? He actually went out there today and did 10 push-ups today, here, at this expo. And I was like, oh shit. I'm just like, and that is what I'm here for. That's what I like to do. I like to be able to inspire people. And the biggest thing is like the long-term changes take small, incremental changes. Now, sometimes you're out at like a party or some sort of social event. Now, the social events are typically the ones where a lot of the falling off comes into play. Every one of us has gone out with our friends and we're planning on eating well or drinking well or anything like that. And then, you're with all your friends and they're drinking and they're partying and they're ordering wings and everything, and you're just like, okay, shit, I'll do it a little bit. And that's fine, and that's okay. But if you do feel like that is something that does not work with your goals, and you do have those negative emotions that are there, one of the best things to focus on is how to avoid that in the first place. You don't sit there and be like, oh, well, I have no control. I can't do this when my friends are around. Well, clearly I can't go out to a pub or a bar without being able to go off plan, so I just have to be a hermit. The thing is, we all have to have lives. What I like to suggest to people, if you're gonna go out and do something, if you're gonna go out to a pub, you're gonna go out with your friends, and you don't wanna fall off plan, it's like, eat first. Like, why not? So imagine you have like a 5-year-old daughter, and you're invited to one of her friends' birthday parties. You guys are there, you're kind of sitting on the chair, you're socializing, talking to other parents, and the host comes up to you and she's like, what kind of pizza do you want? Pepperoni or Hawaiian? And let's say you're weird, you like pineapple on pizza, that's okay, and you instinctually say, I'll have Hawaiian. And then immediately she turns around, walks away, and you feel that buyer's remorse, per se, where you're like, I was gonna be good, I was gonna try. In a situation like that, it's not bad that you're gonna have that piece of pizza, because it's necessary. But if you do feel that it goes against something that you strongly believe in, that you really want to achieve, then you plan ahead next time. Because if you had eaten right before you went out to that party, your instinctual answer probably would have been, I'm good, I already ate. You're not even left with the decision. You don't have any hunger, you don't have any of these different feelings that are there, because you're already fine. So there's different ways to kind of look at things. You need to be practical. You need to be reasonable with yourself. You can't look at me. I've went through 12 years of trials and tribulations to be able to achieve where I am now. And I still struggle every single day when it comes to my food. I still struggle sometimes when it comes to the gym and the motivation and wanting to push. I texted my wife the other day and my other friend, and I was like, fuck, I just feel like giving up. I don't want to try. Everybody gets that. But the big thing is you need to look within yourself, figure out what strengths and weaknesses you have as an individual, and be able to, critically think and work around that. What can I do that will allow me to find more success in the future? And a lot of it is trial and error. You're gonna fail at that too. Maybe you eat before that party and you go there and you still eat pizza. It happens. It happens, and that's okay. You're allowed to have all those things. It's about trying different avenues to be able to find your own personal road to success. Now, one of the reasons that this is really important to be able to move forward and to be super consistent is because life is always moving forward. And roughly around the age of 30, as humans, we start to deteriorate due to age, which means we start going backwards. And if you want to slow the aging process, proper diet and exercise is one of the best ways to do so. But that's not, crash diet after crash diet that's going to get you there. You have to be able to find something for you as an individual that is going to be sustainable for the rest of your life. You have to set those own personal standards to yourself. If you know you can't sit there and go to the gym 6 days a week, then don't start with 6 days a week. Start with 1 or 2. See what's comfortable for you. Maybe your spouse isn't okay with how much time you're spending outside of the house. There's things like that. There's other things to have to work around. You need to find what's gonna work for you as yourself. Now, when it comes to the whole social aspect of things, the reason that it's so hard to stay on plan when we are socializing is because as humans, we are mammals, we are herd animals. We have people that we keep around us because we like them. And why do we like them? Because we share morals, values, interests. And sometimes those interests are sitting at a table, drinking a couple beers every other Friday, having a good time, laughs, have some deep fried food, maybe dance a little bit, things like that. But sometimes you get put into situations where it's uncomfortable because you are trying to look at yourself and your own goals and you want to progress further. You want to do better. And if it's not really something that aligns with everybody else that you hang out with frequently, you might get shunned. You might be felt real awkward. There have been opportunities for most people to be able to stand up for themselves. But a lot of the times, if we get challenged in a social situation, we actually get blinded. We stop, we freeze, like a deer in the headlights. Some people are really good at being able to speak their mind immediately and be like, no, I'm doing this for myself. But I find most people, when put in that situation where you're challenged by somebody amongst your herd, your friends, or whatever, it's hard because you're afraid of having to be forced out or having to be forced to accommodate and be able to do the same things that everybody else is doing. So let's think of a hypothetical. You guys go to the clubs, go to the bar, you're in a pub with a few friends, you're there, and everybody else is ordering drinks, and you order a lemon water. Now, this has happened to me many times. Order a lemon water, and my friends start roasting me. Depending on the type of group I'm with. There was a group of friends that I was with one time where they actually looked at me and they're like, what are you doing? Why are you getting water? Fucking trying to be healthy or some shit? And this was, 5-6 years ago before I really started hitting the gym hard, and it was just like, I was frozen. I was lost, I didn't know what I was doing. I know a lot of people are put in very awkward situations because their friends are like, hey, what are you doing? Now, the reason that they challenge you isn't because they don't want you to be healthier. It's because most of the time, they're afraid of losing you. Because if you are not the type of person that wants to go exercise and eat healthy frequently, things like that, then most of your friends also aren't doing those same things. And so if you start, it's going to take over more time out of your life, and it's going to take more time away from your friends, from the herd, the people that love you and the people that you love. But the discomfort that comes with their challenge is uncomfortable for you and for them. Because when you're starting to make changes, a lot of times they will judge themselves. And they'll judge themselves negatively on the way that you are trying to work on yourself if they're sitting there thinking that way. So sometimes you'll be put in situations where they challenge you aggressively. Did you know that alcohol is the only drug that if you don't partake, something is wrong with you in this society? If you go out and you're just like, hey, I want to get a chicken breast and some rice for my dinner with some vegetables, it's weird to be healthy. And the problem with that, again, is the social aspect. We all want to fit in with our friends. I want all my friends to always want me to be there, but if they're not okay with me bringing my own meal and drinking water, well, I'm not gonna go. I lost some closer friends. They're just acquaintances now because we just used to drink all the time, and that's just not something that I'm willing to do. One of the big problems too is a spouse, or it's people that are closest to you. Most people, when they decide that they want to try to endure, the process of trying to be healthier, things like that, it's a single individual. It's usually not husband and wife that together come together and be like, hey, we need to do this. It's usually one. One of them is like, I want to go on a diet. I need to do this. I want to start going to the gym. And it's very, very common that the spouse will sit there and be like, I'm still eating pizza. I'm not doing this diet shit. This is you. That diet thing is all for you. I'm not doing any of that. I'm sure there's a handful of people out in the crowd today that have heard that today. I might already have a little bit of inside information on that. I'm not really sure. But it's kind of one of those things where I'm aware that does happen. It happens almost too frequently, really. And the problem with that is that you now no longer have the support of the one person that means the absolute most to you, when you are supposed to mean the absolute most to that individual as well. And if they're sitting there and they're just like, their immediate first response is, well, I'm not gonna make things easier for you, that's for sure. Well, that's kind of a cut to the heart, right? Like you sit there and you're just like, wow, shit. I'm like, oh, good thing I know I'm in this all on my own, all by myself. Thanks for the support. So I have a few tips for you guys. Now, the unfortunate part is if your spouse isn't here today, this isn't gonna help you directly, but it is something that you might be able to do for other loved ones or spouses when they are trying to make some changes for themselves. You see, actually, one of the things is I've learned most of my ways of how to support somebody through this from observing my wife. She was very difficult for me at first when I first started, exercising excessively and being healthier. She was that individual that was like, well, I'm still gonna eat this. And I'm like, that's fine. And that was okay. But as she saw that I was gonna be consistent in doing everything anyways, I watched her change into somebody that was incredibly supportive of me. And that support is one of the biggest make or breaks that are out there, because as an individual, we get so hard on ourselves when we make these mistakes, when things get hard, when we feel we don't have people in our corner. We need somebody sitting there being able to help support us up. So one of the first things that I say, if you're ever trying to support anybody, be kind. Always be empathetic and kind. Now, empathy is not an emotion that everybody can feel and share very well, but it is something you can learn how to do. So kindness is number one. Always never sit there and judge, never be like, hey, don't do that. You have to be like, hey, is that something you should be doing right now? Is this okay? And I'm gonna be honest with you, one of the biggest problems that we are all gonna have in our relationship is our ego. Every single one of us has an ego. Whether you want to admit it or not. Now, this doesn't mean you're egotistical, but we have an ego. And so when your most loved one comes to you and says, hey, should you be eating that? When your head's in the treat cupboard and you're trying to eat some cookies, you're gonna look at her and be like, I can eat it if I want. And she'll be like, okay, that's fine. And that's okay. Because the thing is you walk away from that kind of situation and be like, okay, you know what, she was right, shit. Like, I shouldn't have been a dick. Hey, I'm sorry. One of those things. But it's good because that support system is really what is going to keep you moving forward. Some of the other aspects that comes with wanting to support. Ask your partner their goals and ask them what their current challenges are. Not what they know they're gonna be challenging in a couple months or in a year or anything like that. What is your current challenge? Is your biggest thing right now the cravings that come to you? Is it going to the gym? Is it consistency? Is it routine? Figure out what that is and then sit there and feel, what can I do to make it slightly easier for them? Maybe I should wash the dishes and make sure that her dishes are there so that it's gonna be easier for her to see them and she has less reason not to. It's a good way to kind of help. If they have a hard time getting up in the morning, self-sacrifice, get up in the morning at the same time they're supposed to be. Be like, hey, let's go. I got made coffee. Breakfast is on. Let's go, come on. Even though it's not you making the sole decision to try to do better for yourself, you should sit there and try to be as much of a supportive partner as you possibly can, because that truly is what is going to make and break your success in the long term. Because if your partner is not on board with you when you're trying to make these types of changes, how do you think that's going to be in the long term? If you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, you have so many more years that you're expected to be with this person. And if you don't have that support system that's there, it's going to be difficult. But again, like I said, if I can't be talking to your spouse, I can be talking to you. And the way that this can eventually directly correlate back to you is by you showing support to your loved ones, to your partners. If you're able to show support to them, I guarantee you eventually things do come back around. Karma is one of those crazy things that I do heavily believe in. And if you are doing good, you're putting good energy out there, and you're trying to help people as much as you can, you are going to see that come back for you 100 times over. So that is what I recommend to you guys today. Look at the failures as micro failures, as learning opportunities for you to be able to propel forward in life. And then be kind, supportive. Be as supportive to others that you would want them to be to you. And that's everything that I have today. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to come and talk to me at my booth. I'll be here for you.